What if Anakin killed Obi-Wan on Mustafar? In Revenge of the Sith, Anakin is defeated by Obi-Wan because of his lack of high ground and arrogant belief that he could outmaneuver the seasoned Jedi. He then donned the iconic Vader suit that we all know and love. However, on one of our old videos, It's Ali's World pondered what if instead Anakin had defeated and killed his former master. That's the story we'll be analyzing today. So, let's dive right in. Our tale begins on the lava world of Mustafar at the end of Anakin and Obi-Wan's legendary duel. Anakin stands on the platform as his former master jumps onto the obsidian shores above. He once again tells Anakin that he's lost the fight and that he has the high ground. This time, however, Anakin doesn't try and jump over top of Obi-Wan. Instead, he force pushes his old master backwards, knocking him off balance before rushing him with force speed and stabbing Obi-Wan through the stomach. Obi-Wan cries out, his eyes wide, and he looks at his former apprentice with disappointment. Obi-Wan's last words are that he loved Anakin like a brother, and that he couldn't believe that he would turn on all of his friends like this. Then, Obi-Wan dies, unable to complete the training that Yoda had given him at the end of Revenge of the Sith regarding transforming into a Force Ghost. Anakin then picks up Obi-Wan's lightsaber, giving one last glance at his old teacher before turning away, his eyes glistening with the Sith yellow. He then makes his way back to the landing pad where the duel began, and picks up the unconscious Padme before piloting her ship off the desolate world of Mustafar with his droids in tow. What difference does this make to our story as a whole? Let's keep going and find out. As Anakin flies away, he contemplates the gravity of his actions. There truly was no going back now, especially since he had just killed one of the most important people in his formative years. Anakin continues to replay the scene over and over again in his mind as he pilots Padme's ship through hyperspace, and he truly believes that he had done the right thing. The Jedi had turned against him, and they had abandoned the galaxy for their weak dogma. Now, under the rule of Anakin's new master, peace could finally be achieved. Corruption would finally be purged from the ranks of government. The people could live safely, and Anakin would no longer have to mask his emotions or hide his marriage to Padme. And even better, he would now have the power that he needed to save his wife from death. Finally, things would be better. After a long journey with Padme resting on the ship's life support, Anakin arrives on Coruscant. He immediately rushes her to one of the finest medical establishments on the planet and orders that they heal her, especially given the fact that she's soon to give birth. The medical droids admit her into the facilities and begin giving her immediate care, stabilizing her condition. Anakin stays nearby as she wakes up, pleased to see her. Padme, however, is not happy to see him. She remembers everything that he's done at the temple and how he had choked her earlier. Anakin tells her that those were all just lies that Obi-Wan had fabricated about him, and that he was sorry that he had angrily burst out. He promises that it will never happen again, but Padme starts to see a pattern. First, it had been those Tuscans on Tatooine. Then, it had been Rush Clovis. Now, Anakin had directed his jealous anger at her. What would be next, and how many situations did she not know about? Furthermore, he had killed Obi-Wan, a longtime friend of theirs. Anakin had betrayed who he was, fundamentally as a person, and Padme was angry about it. Anakin tells her that everything he'd done had been for her, to give them a better galaxy to raise their children in, and to allow them to finally stop hiding from the controlling eyes of the Jedi. While Anakin is telling the truth, Padme is appalled by his actions, and she starts to see that all of those years ago, when they had discussed politics in that field on Naboo, and Anakin had started spouting authoritarian talking points about how someone needed to force people to conform, that she should have known this would happen. Their conversation is cut short, however, as Padme soon goes into labor and gives birth to the twins. Anakin is pleased with the names that she's chosen, Luke and Leia, and the pair temporarily put their argument on hold, simply enjoying the moments of having new children. The next day, Anakin reports back to his master. He informs Sidious that Obi-Wan is dead and tells him that he had managed to save Padme, just as Sidious had told him that he would be able to. The dark side master cackles telling Anakin that now, after defeating Obi-Wan and saving his wife, he could finally reach his full potential in the dark side of the Force. Sidious tells Anakin that they will have a significant amount of work to do if they are to continue building the Empire. However, Sidious would honor Anakin as a hero of the new government, and he would be the face of their new military and political sphere. Palpatine also has a project for Anakin that he believes will be the end of the Jedi, once and for all. Palpatine tells Vader that he's defeated Yoda, but the elusive Green Jedi was able to escape. He then tells Anakin about the Inquisitors and how he had a select group of Dark Jedi that had joined him during Order 66, lined up for Anakin to train and command. First, however, Palpatine required that Anakin bleed his crystal. As the first true step in his training as a Sith, Anakin must make his blade red. Anakin clutches his saber, and he asks his master how he could do this. Sidious tells Anakin that he must go to the Mustafar system once more and explore the catacombs below the lava fields. There, he would experience the dark side like he never had before, and his pain would burn into passion, which would be fuel for the future. Anakin agrees to do as Sidious says, and he returns to the Mustafar system in a repurposed Jedi Interceptor, which had been painted black and gray, alongside the Imperial cog blazing on the front. Because Anakin didn't lose his droids, he takes R2 with him. 3PO remains at the hospital when Anakin stops by before he leaves. He kneels at Padme's side, telling her that he loves her and that he will return shortly, but that the Emperor had sent him on a mission to find true power. Anakin tells her that soon he would be able to unlock the secrets to eternal life and that one day they could rule together as Emperor and Empress after disposing of Palpatine. Padme completely disagrees with what Anakin is saying, stating that she still believes in democracy and freedom for her people. Anakin scoffs, telling Padme to look where that had gotten the old galaxy during the Clone Wars. She continues to tell Anakin that this isn't him, and that she just wants to raise their children together on Naboo, just like they had always planned. Anakin responds by telling her that they will, but Anakin's still at his duty to the Empire. He then walks away, back to his Interceptor, and he makes the jump with R2 to Mustafar. Sidious sees that Anakin is still holding on to some light in him. He can tell that Padme will be a burden for his ascension into the true Sith that he's meant to become. So, subtly, he whispers in the ear of Colonel Wolf Yularen, whom he has appointed head of the ISB, and requests that she be dealt with quietly, especially since she was also a senator that was a threat to his administration. She was incredibly outspoken, and she believes in an anti-military and anti-imperialist agenda. So, the ISB begins to organize a way to get her out of the picture for good, which would allow Palpatine to fulfill many of his goals as the new Emperor of the galaxy. When Anakin begins his journey through the caves, it initially seems as though this would be an easy adventure. The only frightening thing about this place was how eerie it was. There appeared to be nothing special about the catacombs, and Anakin wonders if he would ever find what his master was hoping for him to. However, after about half an hour of wandering through the caves, guided by the Force, Anakin stumbles across a massive rogwort, the beast that Grievous kept in his lair during the Clone Wars. At first, Anakin is taken aback. Normally, he would have sensed such a beast. Perhaps the catacombs were clouding his vision, encircling him with the typical dark side energy of such a nexus. The surprise is quick, however, and Anakin soon finds his footing. Immediately, he attacks the beast, reaching out with the Force and grabbing its legs. Anakin finds that his powers are amplified by the energy in this area, and he manages to crush the beast's leg with the clenching of his fist. This prompts the rogwort to become enraged, and it begins to swipe at Anakin and attempt to eat him. Anakin fends off the beast, slicing off multiple appendages using the twin lightsaber dueling style that he used against Dooku in Attack of the Clones with his saber, and that of his now dead master. Eventually, Anakin is able to wrangle the beast and stab it through the head, knocking it dead. Anakin continues down the catacombs, wondering if this would be the end of his dark journey. He soon discovers that it is not. Anakin is bombarded by visions of his worst fears coming back to haunt him. He sees his former apprentice, Ahsoka, turning her back on him again, and he sees her stabbed in the back, literally by Sidious. He watches Padme die in his arms after telling him that she doesn't love him anymore. He relives the death of his mother over and over and over again. He sees the face of Gardula the Hutt, his former master as a child, as she beats him and Shmi for not adequately completing their tasks as slaves. Anakin had been enslaved for his entire life, to the Hutts, to Watto, to the Jedi. He was starting to finally feel free as a Sith. He could do whatever he wanted to, and he could express himself without fear of retribution. Anakin sees himself slaughtering younglings in the temple, and he witnesses the dead eyes of Obi-Wan once again. His last vision is watching his children turn on him in the future, killing him and becoming agents of Sidious to execute his will throughout the galaxy. Anakin cries out in pain, feeling anguish flow through him, and he pours that energy into his crystals. Both the crystal of the Skywalker saber and that of Obi-Wan bleed red, and Anakin's soul is once again filled with the intoxicating feeling of the dark side. He is in pain, yes. However, he is also in control. When Anakin returns to Coruscant with his crystals bled, his first move is to go visit Padme at the hospital. Surely she would soon be discharged, and they could live together on Naboo to raise their children, just like they had set out to do. However, when he arrives, he sees smoke coming from the side of the building, and he sees the Coruscant security forces protecting the hospital. When Anakin lands, he runs up to the front of the building and sees Commander Fox, to whom he asks what happened. Fox states that there had been a brazen rebel bombing of the hospital, a statement from a small group of Coruscant citizens that didn't seem to approve of the Emperor's new rule in the galaxy. Anakin demands that Fox let him in, as he's a high-ranking Imperial official. The clone commander lets him pass, and Anakin immediately runs towards Padme's room. What he finds absolutely devastates him. It seems that the bombings had originated in her room. Hey folks, if you're enjoying this story, please consider subscribing and turning on notifications as we update this channel weekly with new What If content. Now, back to the story. Anakin didn't care how it happened. Perhaps one of the nurses had been a rebel sympathizer, or they had planted a bomb inside of the droid. What mattered was the fact that someone had targeted her, and now she was gone. Next, Anakin runs towards the nursery to see if his children are still alive. Thankfully, they were far enough away to be unharmed. However, Anakin is still absolutely enraged. He grabs his children from the nursery, requesting that 3PO help him, and stalks back to the Senate building, where he finds Sidious in his office. 3PO drops Anakin's children off in his quarters and watches them while Anakin confronts his master. Sidious says that he's heard the news, and he attempts to console Anakin briefly. He tells Anakin that these rebels will be brought to justice, and they will be swiftly dealt with by the Imperial justice system. Anakin, however, is in no mood to be consoled, and certainly in no mood for the Imperial justice system. He asks his master where these rebels are, and Palpatine informs him that ISB has found a small group of insurgents in the lower levels of Coruscant. Anakin leaves Palpatine's office in a huff before calling Yularen and asking him to help find these traitors who had killed his wife. The colonel provides him with the information that he had on their whereabouts, which leads Anakin to a small garage in the Undercity. In his rage, Anakin goes all by himself to confront these traitors. When he arrives at the garage, he finds a small meeting taking place. There are a few old, disgruntled clones there, along with some other people that Anakin did not know. However, fans of the animated series would recognize the leaders of this meeting to be Trace and Rafa Martez, who had been inspired by Ahsoka Tano. Without prompting, Anakin enters the room, his eyes yellow and his cape billowing. The clones, they hop up when they see him, drawing their weapons, but Anakin raises his hand and crushes those weapons with the Force. Trace asks what Anakin is doing here, to which he replies that he thinks they know. Anakin raises his hand and lifts half of the attendees of this meeting into the air, force choking them, including the old clones. Anakin crushes their windpipes without mercy, and he proceeds to pin Trace and Rafa up against the wall with a powerful push. They slam into the wall of the garage, struggling against Anakin's Force mastery. Anakin asks why they would hurt a peaceful senator, one who would probably sympathize with their cause and could fight for them. In fact, he asks them why they would bomb a hospital, and tears starts to drip down his face. The sisters tell Anakin that they have no idea what happened with the bombing, but they were not related to it. In fact, they were just planning on raiding some small Imperial facilities that related to military supply lines. Anakin doesn't believe them. He ignites his saber and drives it through both of their chests, telling them that justice was now served. He then ignites Obi-Wan's saber and throws it backwards, slicing through the remaining survivors of this meeting. Anakin had killed them all. He walks out of the garage and makes his way back to his quarters in the Imperial headquarters, and he experiences heartbreak like he never felt before. Over the next few years, Anakin serves the Empire well. He continues to train with Sidious, learning techniques that were limited by his suit in the main timeline, such as Force Lightning, and he commands the Inquisitors with an iron fist. Anakin's face becomes renowned across the galaxy as both a hero of the Clone Wars and a harbinger of justice upon those who would dare go against Imperial command. Anakin, in his new position, is often seen alongside the Emperor at public appearances, and he even gives the occasional speech. However, Tarkin remains the true politician that guides much of the Empire's public policy. Anakin is only focused on hunting down the remaining Jedi that wronged him and crushing rebels like the ones that had killed his wife. He also raises his children, the one bright spot in his otherwise dark life. They are raised in Vader's castle on Mustafar, and they have very little contact with the outside world. Anakin tries to conceal them from the public eye, not wanting everybody to know about his kids and then start harassing them. He treats them well, but he also raises them with a dark side education in mind. He senses their potential in the Force and encourages fighting and competition between Luke and Leia. He tells his children that the world is a dark place, and that finding control over what you can helps gain influence with others. 3PO remains their nanny droid when Anakin has gone away on missions, and they love him to bits. As the Empire continues to grow, so does Anakin's reputation. While in private he is known as Vader, he is still seen by the galaxy as Anakin Skywalker, hero of the Empire. During this time, while Anakin is working in his office on Coruscant, he receives an anonymous message on his holopad, stating only that it came from a source named Obi. In that message is a classified ISA document. Anakin, who is curious about the contents, opens the file. There, he finds a communication from Wolf Ilarad himself, asking that all information contained in the file be deleted, as it was imperative for national security. Anakin continues to peruse the file, and he discovers a horrible truth. Within this document are details that outline an Imperial plan to take out Senator Amidala while she was in the hospital. Even worse, it is signed off by Emperor Palpatine himself. Anakin's jaw drops. The man that had trained him and he had been loyal to since the fall of the Republic had lied to him about the death of his wife. Anakin doesn't even consider the possibility that this could be a trick. Instead, he storms off to Palpatine's office, ready to kill the man, as was the way of a Sith. Anakin enters, and he immediately throws Palpatine's red guards to the side of the room using the Force. Palpatine then says that it is good to see Anakin again, and that he hopes his apprentice is doing well. In this instant, Vader is entirely in control. He ignites the twin lightsabers and points them at Palpatine, demanding to know why he had ordered Padme to be killed. Palpatine cackles as though he's enjoying the moment, and he doesn't even try to conceal his actions, almost as if he was hoping that Anakin would one day find out the truth. Anakin thrusts one of the sabers closer to Palpatine, asking if he thought this was funny. The Emperor tells Anakin that he had done it to make him into a better Sith, and to truly allow him to reach his full potential. Sidious basks in Anakin's anger, telling him that he can feel it rising in him, and that he knows his apprentice wants to strike him down. Anakin lets out a roar of anger and thrusts his saber towards Sidious. However, just before it reaches his chest, Sidious reacts by bringing his own saber to his hand and deflecting Anakin's attack. Now, the duel for the fate of the galaxy would take place. Vader and Sidious dance in an almost imperceivable battle between masters of the dark side. Anakin, who is in his prime, outmaneuvers the old Sith master, but Sidious is still quick. The two clashed sabers, and Anakin's skills with the twin blades exponentially improved past few years of training with them. Sidious, who is a master of all lightsaber forms, manages to deflect them with ease, and he even manages to fire many Force lightning shots in Anakin's direction between saber swipes. Anakin uses the Force to absorb the blast, not even needing his free hand to focus his mental energy. In this instant, he is powerful, the most powerful that he's ever felt in his life. This was the culmination of millennia of the Sith's rule of two, with two of the most powerful dark-side users in history battling for supremacy in that moment. Neither of them seem to tire, and the battle goes on for what seems like forever. Eventually, though, Anakin's youthful athleticism allows him to knock Sidious's saber from his hand, and he backs the Dark Lord into a corner. Anakin tells his master that he has lost, and that Anakin had finally surpassed him. Just like Sidious had predicted in his fight with Yoda, Anakin had finally become more powerful than either of them. Sidious laughs, telling Anakin that this is exactly what he had foreseen, and that this was the way of the Sith. Anakin then plunges his saber into Sidious's body, just like he had done to Obi-Wan all of those years ago on Mustafar. Sidious's body goes limp, and he maintains a smile on his face. An explosion of Force energy after Palpatine's death pushes Anakin backwards, and just like that, Sidious's days of ruling the galaxy were finished. In the coming days, Anakin addresses the galaxy. He says that he had learned of a grave truth, that the Emperor had commanded the ISB to eradicate representative senators that threatened his rule. One of those senators had been Padme Amidala, his late wife. He details to the galaxy that he had dueled the Emperor, and that he had emerged victorious. Now Anakin was claiming the mantle of Emperor, and he was going to make some drastic reforms to Palpatine's old government. While Anakin still rules with an iron fist, he maintains the elected Senate in honor of Padme. He wants the galaxy to at least believe that it is somewhat free. In reality, though, he maintains control. He then fires all of the prominent Imperial officials who had went along with Palpatine's harmful plans, which include Mas Amedda, Tarkin, and Yularen. Anakin believes in a more just empire, one that actually works to maintain civility within the population. Anakin, as a former slave himself, begins to start bolstering attacks on organized crime, hoping to dismantle many of the syndicates that had risen to prominence throughout the galaxy, including Maul's Shadow Collective. He crushes them with that same iron fist, and due to Thrawn's brilliance in military tactics, he eventually ends up promoting him to be in charge of the arm of the military dedicated to taking down these criminals. How does this change in government impact the end of our story? Well, let's find out. With Anakin as Emperor, the galaxy sees a time of relative peace. His military, which no longer is influenced by the Tarkin doctrine, ends up becoming far more successful, and it approves Thrawn's TIE Defender project to help secure the Empire and destroy the lesser-equipped rebel and separatist factions that remain in the galaxy. Anakin continues to lead the Inquisitors, telling them to seek out and defeat all remaining Jedi that they find, including the ever-elusive Yoda. Anakin finally reveals to the galaxy that he has children, and they come to live with him on Coruscant rather than remaining on Mustafar. Anakin trains them in the ways of the dark side, treating both of them as his new Sith apprentices, believing the rule of two to be null now that the Sith had control over the galaxy. Luke and Leia continue to compete for their father's favor as the years go by, but he treats them both fairly and equally, no matter what. He believes that that is what Padme would have wanted. Anakin often thinks of Padme as he rules the galaxy. While he now has control and he can shape the galaxy into his image, he's lonely. His Empress isn't by his side, and he is cursed to live a life of isolation from the camaraderie that he experienced as a Jedi. Even though many of them had treated him poorly, he still ended up calling many Jedi friends. He sees the dead eyes of Obi-Wan staring at him, disappointed. Now, the only people that he had in his life were close military informants, politicians, and his children. Often, just like he sees Obi-Wan, Anakin dreams of Padme, and he yearns to bring her back. Sadly, in Palpatine's cruelty, he had never taught Anakin how to bring people back to life, or even how to save them from dying as he had promised. Anakin spends his free time diving deep into Sith alchemy and the ancient texts of the Night Sisters, looking for clues as to how to bring back his love. Anakin, although he is beloved by many in the galaxy for his strong-arm policies, still finds himself aching for the lost love of his life. Such was the cost of joining the Sith and selling his soul to the dark side. Hello, fellow cookers of Bantha Stew. I hope that you liked this what-if scenario. If you did, I'd recommend watching last week's video. Let us know what you thought down in the comments, and tell us if you'd like to see a part 2 in the future. Have an awesome day, folks, and as always, I hope that you've gotten your daily, delicious dose of Bantha Stew.